Okay, looks like we're good to go. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the HR Support of Supervisors series. I'm Natalie Lindgren, and I'm with HR Training and Development, and I'm going to be talking with you guys for the next several minutes today on the topic of change, which we think is pretty relevant right now, given everything that's going on, whether at work or in our personal lives. So we're going to talk about coping with change, but using resiliency. And one thing I want to mention before we get into this topic, if you all have seen the upcoming topics that we'll be talking about the next several weeks, you may have noticed that our topic for this Wednesday has changed. We were going to talk about leading virtual meetings, but we made a change. So there's our first change we have to deal with today. There are reasons that we made this change. First of all, we have out there, HR Training and Development, have out in My UK Learning what we are calling the Remote Work Series. And currently we have 4 short videos, and they're each around 10 minutes. And they are on topics related to working remotely. One of those topics is leading virtual meetings. And so we didn't want to double dip on our time with you. So what we are recommending, instead of us talking about it here on this series, that you can go out into My UK Learning. And once you get on the Learning homepage, you can click within the Find Learning title and just type Remote Work Series, and all 4 of those videos will come up for you. And the other videos, there's one that's just basic advice for working remotely, managing remote workers, and evaluating remote workers' performance, which is a topic that has come up on these calls as well. So that's why we made the change, because there is a virtual meetings topic that is out in My UK Learning. Another reason that we made the change is because based on some of the chat topics that have come through during these sessions, we wanted to give some more time to some of those chat comments and questions. And so our topic for Wednesday that you may have seen come out in UK Now or in Supervisor Solutions is going to be on conversations and communication. And not just communication, but transparency in communication, particularly when working remotely. So that's why we made the change for this coming Wednesday. But today we're talking about change and coping with change and using resiliency. And so if you can see on the slides here, change is situational. And that's what we have going on right now, these external events that are taking place. For those of you who are working remotely, you know there's been a lot of change. And for those of you who are still working on site in your normal work environment, it's still different for you. So we want to talk about change and how to deal with that. So the change we're going through that is situational. It's these external events taking place. What we really want to talk about is the transition, because the transition in change is psychological, and that's the inner reorientation that we all have to make when dealing with any type of change. We have to go through this in order for the new reality to come. You have to go through this transition. And so that's what we want to talk about today, is how to cope with change and to make it through that transition to whatever the new situation, the new, what some people are calling normal, is going to be. So you can see we have listed here the phases of transition, and we have 3 phases. The first one is the ending, then you have the neutral area, and then the new beginning. And for those of you who do lead a team, which I know is many, many people on this call today, you may have employees, or you yourself may be in any one of these 3 phases at any given time. And it's really important when we talk about the first phase, which is the ending, of people letting go of the old ways. We have to give people the time to let go. Even if what the change that we're going through right now is only temporary, we know that when everybody gets back to campus or gets back to your office, it's still going to be different than it was before COVID-19 and all of that took place. So we need to make sure that our employees and ourselves are able to work through these phases. So letting go of the old ways. Things are different now. They're going to continue to be different. And once we're able to let go of that feeling, then we can move into phase 2, which is what we call the neutral zone. We're kind of in between letting go of the old and bringing in the new. This is the key area. This is where the psychological realignments, so to speak, take place. It's all within. And like we said, unless this transition happens, the change won't take. So probably a lot of folks are in the end of phase 1, starting to be in the beginning of phase 2, potentially, given that this has been going on for a little over a month. And then, of course, phase 3, we've got what we call the new beginning, where people are able to let go. They've worked through some of the big issues that may have arisen. And now we've got this new sense of purpose going on. This is what will make the change work. So as supervisors, we need to be able to help our team move forward, move out of the ending, get comfortable in the neutral zone a little bit, but then continue moving forward, making changes, dealing with the current change, and knowing that more change is going to come. And so that's where, as supervisors, we need to be able to help our team. Change can be unsettling, or it can be exciting. Some people love change, but it will always generate a reaction. And so you'll see here on the screen, on the slide, I have a question, and this is a rhetorical question. I don't want anybody to answer this out loud right now, but we will come back to this in a little bit. So I just want you to think about it. How do people react to change? So again, don't answer, but I want you to think about it and keep that in mind, and we'll come back to it later on. What are some common reactions to change? I can give you some ideas. A lot of people get very anxious. Can I do this? Some people are happy. Some people get fearful, like, how is this going to impact me? What will this mean for me? It could be threatening to some people. This is just too big. I can't deal with it. They could feel guilty, like, oh no, this is my fault. Now, I realize the change that we're going through right now, most people would not be able to say it's their fault, but with basic change, a lot of people can feel guilt around it. Some people may feel disillusioned, thinking there is no way I can handle this change. I'm out. And that could even lead to people saying, you know what, I can't deal with this. Maybe this is not the best place for me to work. I think I just need to leave my job. That could happen. And some people are accepting of it, and some people are really excited with change. They like the challenge. So everybody on your team may be impacted differently, and they may have different thoughts about change, which is great. That's what makes for great teamwork. But as supervisors, we need to know how our folks are feeling, so that way we can help them work through this. Oftentimes with change, there's like a roller coaster going on. You may at first feel shocked. I remember a month ago when we realized, ooh, we're sending people to work from home now, we're working remotely. It was a shock. It was like, oh wow, this is very different. I'm fortunate I can do my job from almost anywhere, but at the same time, there's nobody else around me. And so I was in shock for a little bit. People may be in denial. You may get frustrated. I know I have gotten frustrated quite a bit over the last month because things aren't the same, and I have to put on a new way of thinking about how to get my job done. Some people may even, as the roller coaster goes down, get into a depressed mode. There's that social isolation that we're all dealing with right now. then maybe we start to move our way back up and we're like, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe I find a new way to do my job. Since I'm working remotely versus in the office, I need to figure out new ways to talk to people, communicate with people, new ways to put training out there so people can find it. That leads to making some decisions. And then eventually we keep working our way up to where we're able to integrate all of these thoughts, all of these changes, and come to a new type of work, a new way to do our work. When you think about how some people react to change, the fear, the anxiety, the guilt, the frustration, you also need to think about how do you not only react to change, but as a leader, how do you respond to change? Your team is looking to you for guidance. They're looking to you for leadership now more than ever, with so much uncertainty going on out and about. So as leaders, we need to look at not only how we react to change, but how we respond to change. There are several, and you could research it and find several different types of style preferences when it comes to change. One of those may be acceptance. So the people who accept change, this style of change, they like it in incremental changes. That's me. I like change very small. Let's just implement one little change and the next and the next. There are some people that would be called explorers. They like functional change, but they can be flexible with it. And then there's those who are the challengers, and they're visionary. I like to joke with my boss a lot that she has vision and I'm a little more tunnel, but I can take her vision and then we can run with it. And she happens to be on the call today, so I'm sure she's laughing. But everybody deals with change differently. And as leaders, we need to be able to respond to change in a way that can help our team get on the bandwagon and move along with us. So when we talk about coping with change, stress comes along with change. And when you think of yourself or your team members, stress can bring about challenges, performance, so their job performance. They may miss deadlines or they may cut corners to get the job done. So we need to talk with them about, hey, we still have a job to do. Let's work through this to figure out a new way to get our job duties done. Their conduct may change. They may have a change in behavior. It's not necessarily like bad conduct, but it could be, we talked about depression. They could be feeling anxious. So we need to stay in constant communication with our team. It could impact their health. And I'm so thankful that we also have our health and wellness group that is working in this series with us on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're presenting as well. And I hope that everybody's taking advantage of that. I'll put my little plug out there for health and wellness. But these are things that we need to keep in the forefront of our mind as leaders. And Wednesday, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, about the transparency and communication. It is so important that we communicate with our team one-on-one and as a group to help them through this change. So a lot of stress we know comes from change, and that's where resilience comes in. The power of resilience when coping with change is what helps us move forward. So you can see on this slide, we have resilience is listed, and it's your tendency to cope with stress and adversity. But then we talk about hardiness. Hardiness is more of a pattern of attitudes and skills that help you be resilient by surviving and thriving under stress. And the good news is that skills can be developed. So I want you to think through that again. Skills can be developed. That means you can learn to thrive under stress. You can learn to be able to create a new way of doing work. We're not just sitting here going, uh-oh, what am I going to do? Whether you are working remotely or whether you're still in the office, new skills can be developed. And that is what is so important for us as leaders, is to help our team members, to help our colleagues, to help our direct reports develop those skills. It's a choice on how you cope with stressful situations. And I think most of you, if not all of you, would agree that the best way to cope with a stressful situation is to try to put a positive spin to it. Try to be the person that is the glass is half full, not half empty. Positivity goes a long way, whether it's internal or with your team. So a couple of tips here. When you look at change, treat it as a problem that needs to be solved, not just a problem that, uh-oh, there's nothing we can do. All right, this change has come. What can I do to move forward? What can I do to still be productive? Take steps to solve problems effectively. So not just solving the problems, but what can I do that will make the biggest impact in a positive manner? And then learn and grow from your coping experience or your experiences. Take this as a learning moment. And I know, as cliche as that may sound, look for the silver lining, because there always is one. And I know on my own individual team, we have seen some silver linings along with this change. It's caused us to say, well, let's reevaluate how we look at this type of work that we do, or that type. And good things can come from it, but we have to look for that. Now, one thing I do want to point out before we get to the end of this actual portion of the session is, this is shameless and I'm sorry, but I have to plug this for HR training and development. The information that I talked about today actually is just a small, tiny portion of a class that we have called Facing the Challenge of Change. And this is not a new class. We've had this class for quite some time, but we're in the process of creating it in a virtual setting. So that way we're able to facilitate it from our homes. It will be available virtually in My UK Learning in the next few weeks. And when I say few weeks, I'm hoping like in the next 2 weeks, where we're going to have some available. But it's called Facing the Challenge of Change. And like I said, this topic came directly from that training. And change is huge, whether it's, or dealing with change is huge, and whether it's this ginormous change we have going on right now, or just small little changes, it can be really hard. And it's really, really important that we work with our team members and help them to cope with change. Put that positive spin to it. And it's not, well, I can't do this anymore, but what can I do? How can I move forward? And so, of course, as always, we have our HR contact information out here, financial well-being, health and wellness, of course, training and development, and work life, which is a Zeta's area. But hopefully you'll be able to start thinking of change as, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good thing, but we've got to help our team go through with that. So thank you for joining this session. And again, come back to us on Wednesday when we talk about communication and transparency.